one says, and he grips her elbow as if it were an instruction manual. The batteries and cough drops in her basket rattle against the tiny bottle of honey. I want you to hold this moment with me. Because what happens next isn't about the law exactly. It's about the moral weather that lives inside a store at 9:47 p.m., and what any of us decide we'll do when we're the only ones who notice that the temperature just dropped.
A short documentary told in the language of a quiet evening and the courage it asks of ordinary people. A distant radio in the staff room leaks a song you almost recognize, or smell like clean hands, and the rotisserie chickens whisper to each other behind glass. And this is where the story slides its key into the lock. We start with Maya Ortiz, 27, produce clerk, hair tied in a loose knot that keeps slipping because the elastic is old. She's on her second shift of the week, walking with that slightly exhausted sway of someone whose feet and the floorboards have learned each other's language. Her palm smells faintly of limes. She has no illusions about heroism. She's ordinary. She will tell you that as if it's something she's proud of. Close shot of Maya's fingers selecting a bruised apple, turning it toward the light. Just 5 aisles away, Nadine Calder stands at the end of the dental hair shelf, choosing toothpaste. Her coat is civilian, navy wool, a little too warm for the store, and her posture is unconcerned. You would not know looking at her that there are rooms where people once stood at attention when she walked in. You would not know that she's a police captain on medical leave, the medal in a drawer under her socks, the stories of a life spent introducing her body to other people's danger. Right now, she is someone's daughter texting a reminder to buy honey. Ambient. A small child asking for cereal, a cart's wheel complaining in one long high note. The security guards watch Nadine because a packet of Razorhead slips in a way that looks wrong. She holds it, checks the price, and sets it in her basket beside cough drops and batteries. The guard with narrow shoulders tips his chin toward his partner. They move as if they've been told to make themselves visible for the cameras. Good posture, practiced caution. What's important is this. Maya sees them first. Not the way you see people at a distance, but the way a custodian sees a leak, a landscaper sees wind direction. She notices the ripple of attention moving through an aisle and toward a person who hasn't done anything except be a person. You felt that, haven't you? The air changes. The ceiling feels lower. You don't know yet what's wrong, only that something is about to be asked of you. Narrator. If you've ever thought, I should say something, and then your own heartbeat edited you into silence, you know how heavy those 10 steps can be. Cut to. Aisle camera footage, hypothetical reconstruction. Grainy. Nadine pays for nothing yet. That's the point. She hasn't paid because she hasn't left. The first guard clears his throat. The second reaches for Nadine's elbow with 2 fingers, polite by policy but not by feeling. Maya looks up at the camera dome, then at the tiny mirror mounted high at the corner of the aisle. In its warped reflection, she can see her own face, heavier with anger than she expected. She hates this feeling, the one where the floor of the world tilts slightly and you're supposed to pretend you didn't notice. The rules are an atmosphere. Some keep us breathing. Some are weather we pretend is natural. Maya knows policy the way you know a song you've shelved, forgotten, and can still sing. She knows you can't detain a person who hasn't walked past the register. She knows you can't put your hands on them. She knows the store manager will look at her later and say words like liability, and she will feel the spell of those syllables try to make her doubt what she saw. Let's just go to customer service, Maya offers, opening her hand toward the front. We can check the cameras together. The guard's jaw tightens. This is a security matter. Then I guess I'm part of security tonight, Maya says, and it's almost a joke until she hears how it lands. Nadine shifts her weight, 1 foot forward, like she might need to brace. It's fine, she says, but her eyes are saying, thank you for standing here. Cutaway. The windows show a parking lot wet with fog, sodium lights drawing halos around themselves. The guard's partner, younger, glances at his shoes. You can almost see a thought scratching at the door inside his head. Nadine opens her purse. "You cannot search my bag without my consent," she says. And her tone, there it is, the captain, the training, the years of not flinching, slides into the room like a piece of music changing key. "And you will remove your hand from my arm." The older guard hesitates, then lets go. The small red marks his fingers leave look like a fact he will need to explain later.
"I'm going to the front with Miss Ortiz," Nadine says. "And you can either walk with us or call your manager, but you will not detain me." There is a green exit sign at the end of the aisle. It throws a puddle of light the color of permission onto the linoleum. Everyone tries not to look at it. Ambient. The register scanner beeps like a heartbeat. They walk. You can feel the store holding its breath. The jelly shelf smells like sugar and dust. At the customer service counter, Samir, the night manager, looks up from a stack of receipts with the face of someone who knows he's about to inherit a problem like a stray cat that decides you're its house now. "What's up?" he says, measured, friendly, because that's his weapon and his shield. "Security is detaining this customer without cause," Maya says. Her voice is steady now, cooled by purpose. Samir glances at the guards. "We have cause," the older one says. He sounds certain because certainty is an easier sound to make than admitting you grabbed too fast. "Show me," Samir says. They crowd around the small monitor behind the counter. Maya, Nadine, the two guards, Samir, and a woman buying lottery tickets whose eyes keep darting over because this is better than the scratch-off patterns. The footage feeds are fixed and indifferent. A camera shows Nadine picking up the razor heads, reading the back, the tiny holographic shimmer of the seal, and placing them in her basket. Another shows her pausing to answer a text, slipping her phone into her coat's inside pocket. The cameras do not show theft. They show errands. Samir scratches his chin. "I'm not seeing." "Maybe we missed it," the guard says, insistence fraying into hope. "You didn't," Maya says. Nadine breathes out the kind of breath you only notice if you've been holding your own with her. Cutaway. Nadine's hands. A small scar across the knuckle on the right. The kind of scar that looks like it comes from knowing what to do when a door won't open. Sometimes it takes longer to walk back a mistake than it took to make it. In that stretch of time is where dignity either grows or collapses. The older guard turns to Nadine without turning toward her. "Look, if we were wrong, you were," Nadine says. "It's not a debate." A silence. The kind that rearranges the furniture inside your head. "Okay," Samir says. "Miss Cowder, is there anything we can do to make this right?" Nadine starts to say no because she is tired and because she knows there's paperwork at home with her name on it that describes her body like a problem to solve, and because the week has already taken more than its share. But then she looks at Maya. The produce clerk stepped into a weather system to calm it with her hands. The young man in uniform whose eyes keep falling to the floor. The older guard whose mouth is a line he's held too long. She nods once. "Start with an apology," she says. The older guard swallows the first 10 words that rise into his mouth, the words that mean, "But I was following procedure," "But we were told to watch," "But theft is up." He has a son at home who plays soccer in once white shoes. He knows apologies have to land in the body they bruised. "I'm sorry," he says, facing her fully for the first time. "I grabbed your arm. I shouldn't have. I assumed the wrong thing." Nadine listens to him like she's scanning a radio for a station. She nods, almost imperceptibly. She's not generous, she's precise. Precision is kinder than generosity when somebody has taken something from you that they can't return. "And the rest of it," she says. He winces. "I'm sorry for detaining you without cause." Maya watches Nadine's face. A tiny shift, the muscles around the eyes relaxing to the smallest degree. The tension in Maya's shoulders loosens. You can feel the store's temperature rise half a degree.
Before we tell you what happens next, there's something you should know. It would have been so much easier for Maya to do nothing. It would have been easier to adjust the apples and pretend the universe's angles were straight. Moral courage often looks boring to everyone who wasn't there. Nadine reaches into her coat. She pulls out a worn leather wallet, the edges soft like a book that's been loved. She flips it open. The shield is dull from actual use, not polished, not theatrical. It's the kind of truth an object holds because it has been true for a long time. And the rest of it, she says. He winces. I'm sorry for detaining you without cause. Maya watches Nadine's face. A tiny shift. The muscles around the eyes relaxing to the smallest degree. The tension in Maya's shoulders loosens. You can feel the store's temperature rise half a degree. Before we tell you what happens next, there's something you should know. It would have been so much easier for Maya to do nothing. It would have been easier to adjust the apples and pretend the universe's angles were straight. Moral courage often looks boring to everyone who wasn't there. Nadine reaches into her coat. She pulls out a worn leather wallet, the edges soft like a book that's been loved. She flips it open. The shield is dull from actual use, not polished, not theatrical. It's the kind of truth an object holds because it has been true for a long time. The younger guard sucks in air. Samir's eyebrows float up, then return to neutral because he's learned not to display surprise unless it's over a price mistake. Captain Nadine Calder, she says quietly, because titles are loud enough even when whispered. On leave. I didn't say anything because I shouldn't have to. The older guard closes his eyes for a second. He sees the story he'll tell later, and he wants to tell a different one. I appreciate your apology, Nadine continues, but this shouldn't be about who I am. It should be about how you treat someone you think has less power than you. The sentence hangs between the cereal and the cigarettes. It settles on the shoulders of everyone within earshot. Samir clears his throat. Maya, he says, thank you for... Don't, Maya says softly, with a little half-laugh that is actually a release valve. I don't want credit. I want a shift where no one has to shape their face into a smaller shape than it is. They stand in the quiet, the kind that happens when the gears of a conflict stop grinding and you can hear everything again. The beep, the hum, the soft squeak of a sneaker across tile. Someone in aisle 3 debating brands of pasta like it matters. Because it does. Because everything we do is practice for the moment when it will matter very much. Nadine pays for her batteries and honey and cough drops and razors. Yes, in the end, she buys them. And when she slides her card, the reader beeps approval with the same indifferent cheer it grants every transaction. Maya bags the items with deliberate care that makes even plastic feel respectful. Can I walk you out? Maya asks. Please, Nadine says, and the word is a bridge. Exterior, parking lot. The air is damp, the kind of cold that sits on your skin and asks if you brought a better coat. They walk between rows of cars, the lights humming like bees in metal hives. The world beyond the store starts again. A bus sighs, a couple argues in the quiet. A teenager laughs too loudly into his phone. Nadine's coat glows faintly under the sodium lamps. I'm sorry, Maya says, surprising herself, for how they... You didn't do it, Nadine replies. The cold makes their breath visible. You interrupted it. Maya smiles. She wants to ask about the badge, about the stories that live behind that metal. But the parking lot feels like a place where questions should be kept small. I have to get back, she says. I left a box of limes open and they'll dry out if I... She stops, embarrassed at how ordinary the sentence is at the edge of something that felt big. I like that you said that, Nadine says, that you care about limes. They both laugh, the kind that warms you back to yourself. Nadine unlocks her car. The inside light flicks on and paints the interior a soft gold. She turns toward Maya, serious now, but not heavy. Thank you, she says. You're welcome, Maya answers, and the words feel insufficient and exactly right. Nadine gets in, closes the door. She sits with her hands on the steering wheel, the way you do when you've held a different kind of line for a long time, and now you're letting it go. She stares at the honey puddled at the bottom of the bag, like captured sunlight. Then she starts the engine. The headlights catch the caution cones near the loading dock and make them look like small pilgrim hats before she pulls away.
Inside, Maya returns to produce. The apples are still there, undemanding, sudden planets waiting for their orbits. It would be easy to end the story here, with the relief of a correct thing done. But this story is about the after, about the conversation a couple of hours later in the break room, where the younger guard sat with his hands pulled up into his sleeves and said, "I think I've been looking for the wrong thing." And Maya stirred her tea and said nothing, because sometimes silence lets a thought finish forming. It's about the memo Samir wrote that night, careful in tone so it wouldn't set anyone on fire, but precise in its new rules. Do not detain a customer inside the store for suspected theft. Do not make contact unless you've observed concealment in exit. Call a manager. Do not touch. He didn't cite morality, he cited policy. But everyone who read it felt something else snag on the edges of the words. Dignity. It's about Nadine at her kitchen table, spooning honey into her tea, hand steady, the badge closed back in its wallet like a folded wing. She texts her sister. Long night. Saw the inside of a place that still thinks it's outside. She doesn't explain. She doesn't have to. She stares at the steam rising off her mug, thinking about all the rooms she's been in where power arranges the chairs and people squeeze themselves into the leftover shapes. Before we wrap, I want to tell you a secret that isn't a secret. Courage rarely announces itself. It walks in wearing a green apron and scuffed sneakers. It says, "Hey," at the end of the aisle and rearranges the way the night was going to go. It is inconvenient. It could cost you something. That's why it's courage and not an opinion. Montage is on. The store at closing. Maya stacks the last apples. The older guard lingers by the doors, gaze soft, shaking his head at himself. Samir turns off a bank of lights, one by one, the store shrinking to its sleeping self. We keep looking for grand acts to absolve us of the smaller ones, but the truth is made out of small things. The way someone sets down a basket, the way a hand finds a forearm and then realizes it has no right to be there and lets go. The way a clerk uses her body like a wedge to keep the world from splitting along an old seam. Later, much later, when Nadine returns to work, she'll take a call from a store manager across town who says, "We changed some training." And she'll say, "Good." And it will sound like a blessing and like a report. She won't tell anyone about the honey. She will keep that for herself, a small, sweet thing rescued from a night that tried to go sour. This is not a story about the badness of two men. It's not even really about a badge and a wallet. It's about the architecture of respect and how fragile it is until someone leans their shoulder into it. It's about how Maya decided, in a thin aisle between toothpaste and gossip magazines, that a stranger's dignity was something she was willing to carry for a few minutes, like a heavy box that is not hers, but will be lighter if two hands hold it. In the quiet, after the market sleeps, the night holds a long exhale. If you listen carefully, you can hear the idea at the center of it, that every public place is a test, that every one of us is on a jury we didn't ask to be on, that mercy is not a soft word, it is the harder thing, the one that leaves you a little sore, the one that asks you to return tomorrow and try again. The moral here is simple, which is not to say easy. Dignity should not be conditional, not in a uniform, not on a title, not on how much room someone takes up under fluorescent lights. The world gets better at the scale we actually live at: aisles, counters, parking lots, and by the hands we actually have. Thanks for watching. If you've had to step between someone and a small harm, tell us what that felt like. If you didn't, tell us what kept you. Not for confession, but for practice. We're all going to get another chance.